السلام عليكم سوري Kjelsjo. Саце Адам Исаев WeyDu Kugelhovu, председатель организации WeyDu. Я буду говорить на английском, и все ответы сегодня будут тоже произноситься на английском языке, потому что для молодежи в Европе не только это самый понимаемый язык на этот момент, и так как информация важна для них, особенно для будущих студентов, мы проведем этот вебинар на английском языке. So we are the organization for Chechen and English youth. Our mission is to help the youth to find their way abroad, remember their values, and be connected to each other. So today we have a webinar for the future students. We have three speakers today. So Isa is an architect. Then second one is Hamzat. He's a studying engineer. And third one is Mohmad-Amin. He's studying medicine. The Benny, he was studying IT, is a little bit ill today, so we hope he will connect tomorrow, inshallah. So now I will try to connect Isa. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Mo, нормально?
Because more actually.
Isa, I thought that it was impossible to have two people, but I think maybe the connection will be not so good. So I will exit this talk, and I will write in the chat or questions if you prefer.
Yeah, sure, that's great.
I will write in chat because I think most of people will write something down there. So you just check out this.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope you all are having a great day. My name is Isa Bagadov. I live in Belgium. Been living here for like 20 years already. I studied architecture and arts at the University of Hasselt, and I graduated about around a year ago. I graduated. After that, I actually chose to have like a few months off before I actually would start working. And after you actually graduate as an architect, most students who graduate as an architect actually starts on their own also as a freelancer, I suppose you called it in English. And that's also what I did. And also, after the graduation, you are forced to have 2 years of internship. And this is actually because you cannot learn everything that an architect actually has to know during the studies, which are like all the administration tasks and all that, because there's like a lot that comes to it. So right now I am in the stage of doing my 2 years of internship. I am like 8 to 9 months in it right now, so it's going pretty well. My dad has been working in construction for like his whole life. And during the secondary school, I never really thought about like studying further into anything really. But my dad always kept joking like, maybe you should be an architect, maybe you should do this and that. And after I finished my secondary school, I was like, why not? Let's just do it. Let's just try it, because everybody was also like, it's going to be way too hard. It's like all mathematics and all of that, which actually ended up not to be all about mathematics, because I also thought it would be more mathematical, practical, and doing calculations and like calculating this and the strengths and everything, which is like not that much the case as people love to tell people about, I suppose. So the choice was really because my dad actually has been working in construction for all his life, and that's all I've seen a lot of construction in my life because of that, and I suppose that is why my interest for architecture actually grew. My interest for architecture actually grew more during my studies, obviously. No, I absolutely do not regret it. It was I believe I would dare to say it is the best profession you can actually have, because it is artsy in a way. I have always been interested in arts, kind of. I have never really done a lot of arts, and architecture for me was a way of doing arts in a way. I would almost dare to call it like rational way of doing arts, because you have artists who make art pieces, to artists who paint, and you have like the construction workers, for instance, like my dad, and you have like architecture in between, pretty much, because architecture, I believe, is a kind of arts form, because you are creating spaces where people live in, people walk in, and people actually function in, and each space is also always different from one another, which makes it for me very interesting. Do you have to be good at in my faculty mathematics? Yeah, so I believe that you never know if you are to be an architect unless you actually try studying it. Because, as I said, a lot of people think it's like mostly about mathematics and stuff, and it is not. I also heard a lot of people say, like, my son, he can draw really well, so he will probably try to study architecture, which is also not very important to be able to draw really well. You do get sketching classes and drawing classes and art classes during your studies as an architect. But like the most important thing, I believe, is still to be able to design, and if you want to know if you are able to design, the only way to know that is to actually study it, because it is quite hard to explain how it works. It's like you have to make architecture and rationalize it. As I said, it is a kind of a art, but rational art, and sometimes it's quite hard to connect these two dots together. For instance, I had a professor, and I was like, I made a design and I was explaining it to him, and I said, I put a stair here and this and that. And then he suddenly asked me, like, what is a staircase? What is a staircase? It's like you have to go deep into everything in architecture, pretty much. What would be my dream accomplishment in my field in the future? My dream accomplishment, I think, still is and will be, until I achieve it. After I'm sure I will start my own office. But my really dream accomplishment is probably mostly going international in a way, and also building in Chechnya is one of the things I would love to do. The most difficult subjects, I believe that's different for everybody in a way. For me, subject-wise, really, like knowing-wise in a way, or being able to, was mathematics and chemistry, because I never really had a lot of mathematics. I had like 2 hours of mathematics in secondary school each week, and like no chemistry. So I never really saw chemistry. So these were like two really hard subjects during my studies in architecture and arts. But also, what was very hard is like the physical part of studying it, because, and also I also believe that this is probably, it depends on person to person. And the physical part is the nights that you cannot sleep because you have a deadline. Yeah, so I had a lot of these, and when I say you cannot sleep, I mean you don't sleep. You just do your project till you finish it, and most of the times I did that. I had to do that. There was like a weekend I couldn't sleep at all. So from Friday till Monday I was awake, and then I had my jury. And also the juries might be quite hard sometimes, I suppose, but also again, that's from person to person. It depends on how you are in explaining the thing you design. What would I like to build in Chechnya, and would I ever consider living there sometime? What I would like to build in Chechnya, well, for now, normal housing, just housing for people. Because actually Chechen architecture and especially the housing subject in that is like very vernacular. Vernacular as in it means that the people actually build their own houses. So it's quite interesting for me to actually see how people build their houses, because in Chechnya, as we all know, they do it themselves. And you always see like items like objects or like way of building coming back in each house. For instance, like the gates, the big gates that are in the front are like interesting to know why and how. And so yeah, houses, it would be for me the most interesting to build for now. And living there, I don't think I would be able to, because my Russian is like really bad. I want to learn Russian better than I know, but like my Chechen is well enough to actually live there, but I'm not sure if I would be able to live there. What would I advise to students that want to go in architecture studies to do right now to prepare? Phew, that's a hard question. Um, I would say mathematics and chemistry. For me, it was actually mathematics and chemistry because I knew it would be a very hard part. But it is actually only hard in the first year, at least at my university, because it is really like mathematics as in mathematics. In the second and the third, fourth year, it is mostly physics, which is like applied to architecture, which is easier to understand, which was easier to understand for me at least. Um, yeah, I think that would be a great way to start. I wouldn't say you have to be great in mathematics, because I was not at all, or chemistry. So that is something that you maybe want to look into if you have a hard time in mathematics and chemistry. And also, I think it's also very important for people to make to have like a group of friends at university. It was very important and very helpful for me at least. At my university and my year of architecture, you could see that everybody has their own group of friends, and when you have like a hard time with a exam with, let's say, with mathematics, I would ask my friends, and I actually got help from my friends who studied with me. So it was easier to study it, to understand it, and that's also in a way why I think I was able to pass my exams in mathematics mostly and chemistry. Have I ever had re-examinations? Yes, I did. I did have re-examinations, mathematics and chemistry mostly, but also others. And yeah, I believe you just redo it and you never skip an exam. Well, I actually never skipped the exam. I would recommend everybody to, if you have a re-examination, just do it, because in Belgium, like in my university at least, you have a choice to skip it or you do it. And I would say just do it, even though you didn't study or didn't study enough. I would say just do it. Do you spend more time working at home or in the ateliers? I spent more time working in the ateliers because at school I worked. It was easier for me to work at school because you don't have your family running around having their free time while you don't have your free time. And at school, nobody has a free time pretty much, so you are in between your people in a way. How is the male-female ratio at your faculty? More men, I guess. If yes, what would you say to ladies to encourage them to study architecture? Actually, it was more females, I believe, but not like a big difference in a way. But I think it was more females. To encourage them to study architecture. Yeah, there are actually a lot of females studying architecture. It's quite like I didn't expect it myself, but in my class we had more females than males studying architecture. So so for females it's actually quite easy to find female friends to work with, talk with, and help each other with studies. Well, that was at least at my university. Did I Did I feel good with my fellow students? Yeah, I did feel good with my fellow students. The friends I made there, actually, I made a lot of friends there. And mainly they were, I have like Turkish friends. I have a friend from Kosovo. In my class, actually, in like any year of architecture when I was studying, I had no, there were no Chechen people studying architecture. So it was always Turkish people, a friend from Kosovo, and of course Belgian people also. So it was really, it is kind of international, really. So it's also quite interesting. You learn from each other, and I like it. Describe your dream house. Well, that's actually a quite hard question. I'm not sure if I'm able to do that because then I would have to kind of explain architecture, but it would probably be a collection of like a composition of different materials: concrete, metal, wood, windows that you see through, windows you don't see through, if you know what I mean. So it's like a nice composition of materials, colors, textures, and obviously the rooms would also be in a interesting composition. But like, yeah, no, I haven't designed my house yet, so can't really describe it that much. Am I happy with my chosen university? No, no, I don't prefer another university. I mean, I am happy with the university I chose. The professors and the students who were with me actually studying and helping and teaching were very helpful, very nice, and they taught me a lot. City-wise, it would obviously be more interesting to be in a different city like Antwerp or Brussels, but that's not the case. But the university itself was very good. I liked it. Who is my favorite architect and why? Also a very hard question. A lot of professors ask me his question, and I never understood why they would ask it, because as an architecture student, you don't really have like a specific favorite architect at the points of your studies. It always changed. So one time, a professor asked me, "Who's your favorite architect?" And I was like, "Do you actually want to ask me who is my favorite architect right now?" And then I answered, and I don't remember what the answer was back then. I think it was probably Rafael Moneo. Right now, if I have to think about it really, I think there are like many actually. One I always liked and probably always will like is probably Peter Zumthor. The way he actually is able to create atmosphere in his rooms, in his architecture, how he actually also with what's the word again? Ambacht. What's the word again? I forgot the word. So how he actually creates rooms and all this, how his structure is really made, how he makes his structure is actually quite interesting, and I love it. Like his pavilions for the zinc mine, for instance, fascinating. I was in Switzerland last, and also I visited his terms in Vals. Beautiful. So yeah, him. How is the life as a professional? Is it being an easy life? Yeah, since I love architecture, I think it's easy. As people say, if you love your job, you never work. It is quite easy in that way, but physical wise, it can get hard. I mean, there was a time I had a deadline at work, and I literally slept in my car for like 20 minutes. So I worked from like 8 a.m. in the morning till the next day about 1 p.m. And then I left for home because I was tired. But yeah, I love my profession, so it's not really a work, it's more like a hobby. I like it. Can you talk more about studying abroad, possibilities involved? Yeah, at the University of Hasselt, since I studied there, I know kind of how it works there. At I think third bachelor, you have a choice. So you have to do a internship, and you have a choice to do it in Belgium or abroad, or abroad. And if you do it in Belgium, you cannot do it as at a architecture office. I don't know the full reason for that, but you have to do it at a construction firm. If you do it abroad, you can do it at the architecture office, and you have to do it longer since you are traveling far. You better stay there for like a month at least. And I did that. I did abroad to South Africa, and they also help you to manage it, to get it done. Pretty much all the paperwork, school helps you with it, and I would really encourage people to do it. South Africa for me, the internship was about a month, and it was the best experience I ever had. I loved it. What is my favorite building in the world? Okay, that's also quite hard question. Yes, I when I wrote my thesis, I talked a lot about the Museum of Roman Arts in Merida, which was by Rafael Moneo, and I think that building is still one of my favorite buildings. But I don't dare to say the favorite building because I know like a lot of different buildings which do not come to mind right now. But that one always tends to come to my mind, so I would say Museum of Roman Arts in Merida by Rafael Moneo. Did I combine work and studies? A little bit, not that much. I did work a bit with my dad in construction during my studies, but not that much. Also, before my studies, I also worked at the university. Sometimes they send you emails and say like, we need students for this student job or that student job, and then you look up, do I have time? Yes, I have time, and then you apply for it. So I did work a little bit, but not that much. I did have friends who worked a lot more during their studies, so it is quite possible. But for me, I think it was also, yeah, it's quite possible to do it. If you want to do it, you can obviously do it. And mostly it will probably be student job in the weekends. Did I live in a student room? No, I did go home every day. The university is about 25, 30 kilometers away from me. In the first 2, 3 years, I went with the bus, which was not that easy because sometimes you have a jury and then you have to take your model with you. And sometimes they're like quite big. So you have to find a way to protect it while you're traveling in the bus. But it was quite possible for me to do it. So yeah, I went home every day and back. Tell something about the hobbies. My hobbies actually would be probably like drawing. I haven't drawn or also a bit painting now. I'm actually trying to start painting again, which is quite fun to do. Assalamu alaikum, Moose. So yeah, that's those are kind of my hobbies: drawing, painting, anything actually with art. I try to do, and sometimes, and right now I also want to pick up a guitar again. Maybe I don't know. So arts in a way. Does it cost a lot to do models in overall? Does the student life cost a lot? The student life for me cost a lot because I always ate at school, and which was not that cheap. To do the models, I think it depends on the people really. I think it depends on what kind of model you do. You can always do cheap models, which is quite possible. There was a time when I had a studio in Tanzania. I made a model out of wooden sticks, and you could buy these sticks at the art store, which were like quite expensive, and I bought like 20 of them, which I have no idea how much they cost, but they were like probably 50, 60, 70 euros for like 20 of them. And then I went to the athlete at school. I realized you have these machines machines to saw wood and all that, and there's like trash which is like all wood. So I made more sticks actually out of trash, which was actually free. And so the model actually ended up costing less than it would if I would buy like all the sticks that I needed. So you can do it in a very cheap way, or you can do it in a very expensive way, because it can get quite expensive if you want to. Do I personally consider the architect as an artist? Is the architect an artist? I suppose they can be, because you have architects who actually really believe that they actually are making art. And I also believe that as an architect, you can make arts. As I said, you are, it is in a way, I would dare to say, rational art, because you are making spaces, as I said, for people who live in, walk in, function in a way that is always different. Maybe you want to make connection with the nature. Maybe you want to have like beautiful views. Maybe more like in a contemporary way. There's also words that I forgot again. Contemplation. Also, in a way, I believe that can also be. If you focus your architecture on that term of contemplation, I believe that it is quite possible to say architecture can be arts, and architects in a way can be artists. How do you cope with stress that comes with your studies? Do you think the university does enough for their students, or can they do more in your opinion? For me, I think I've always been lucky to not have too much stress when it comes to deadlines and exams. In a way, it is lucky, I believe, because sometimes I would not stress even though I have an exam tomorrow and still didn't study, for instance. So in that way, it's bad not to stress, but stressing too much is also not good. But I do think that universities try to help their students who stress a lot with their studies. I haven't had experience with getting help from the universities, and I do not remember any friend of mine having that. So in a way, I'm not sure if they help a lot, but I believe they could. And as I said, you always have friends who can support you in that way, who can help you. Because in architecture, you have a lot of people who tend to cry during the deadlines because the professors can be quite harsh and they can actually put you on your place in a way, and in a harsh way tell you that you are not fit to become an architect in a way, which is very hard for some people, and then you get situations where some of them cry. So yeah, it is a stressful studies, but I think I was quite lucky that I don't stress too much in those kind of situations. Do you have to be creative from the start, or is that something you learn in the studies? I believe you can actually learn to be creative, because being creative in architecture, I believe you have to learn. You can, I don't really believe you can just start architecture and you're creative. No, because being creative in architecture is, as I said, combining the rational way of how people live, how people move, how people use a room, and cultures of people, connecting that with the arts of making spaces, making compositions of spaces, and so on. So I believe you have to learn that. So it does come from time to time, the learning of being creative. But I also think that maybe it's a bit too harsh to say. Some people just, I don't think, some people just don't have it, maybe in a way. I'm not sure. But you only know it if you try it. So you have to try it if you want to know if you can go further from it. But I do believe that you can learn to be creative if you try hard enough. It is actually quite interesting in the field of architecture, how it actually evolves from not knowing much or anything at all to being able to say why you put that window there and why it is the size that you made it. You know, it's you always have to try to find a reason for what you do in architecture. Did you have a passion for architecture before you started your studies, or is it something you build up as the years go by? No, I wouldn't say I had passion for architecture before I started studies because I thought it was all about mathematics, structure, calculations, and just building. You need a door to go through through a wall. You need a window to see through the wall. I thought it was like that. I believe in a way, but no, my passion for architecture grew during my studies because then you realize that you can have a door to go through a wall, but you can also have like just an opening to go through a wall. You can have a hallway to go from one room to another. So it's actually quite interesting to learn these things. Yeah, my passion grew throughout my studies. What software do you use and how important is it now in your work studies? Does it kills creativity or it helps you more? The software I use right now at work is ArchiCAD. ArchiCAD, it's a software I actually never liked at school. Because I never really used it. I tend to use Vectorworks at school always, also with SketchUp together. But since I started working, I had to use ArchiCAD, and yeah, I like it. It's easy to use now. You learn it quick. Does it kill creativity or does it help? It does not help with creativity, but I believe it does also not kill creativity because your creativity is always in your thought, like in your mind while you're thinking, but you think while you are designing because you are not forced to design in ArchiCAD. The only thing you have to do in ArchiCAD is draw the final drawings. You can always sketch, so if it helps for you to design by just sketching, then you just sketch. If it helps by doing it on ArchiCAD, while I have no idea why it would, then you can do it on ArchiCAD. So it does not kill creativity, but it also doesn't help with creativity. Can you give some advice to people who want to start studying architecture or who are in their studies now? Also, maybe general advice to students. I believe the most important thing in the studies of architecture, but it is probably also in any studies. I believe the most important thing is friends, your group of friends. For me, that was very important because, as I said, I had a hard time with mathematics and chemistry, and my friends were always there to help me with it. And with anything else, really, with juries, with the designing projects, anything, we would help each other. So you are never alone trying to achieve a goal, and at that moment the goal is graduating and getting your diploma. Do I like the work of Zaha Hadid? Not necessarily, but I think any architect really cannot. They can not like her designs, but they cannot deny that she achieved a lot in her life. So yeah, I don't really like her work, but I do respect her a lot, and I respect her a lot. She achieved a lot in her life. Would you say that architecture juries can be really subjective at a certain level, and succeeding or failing can depend on your luck with your jury members sometimes? I believe, yeah. In a way, I think it does depend on your jury members, obviously, because every architect, in a way, has their own taste, I would say, or their own idea about architecture. But you do obviously have professors, they try hard enough, I believe, to take everything in calculation. Even though they see architecture, they might not I wouldn't dare to say like, or architecture they would not do themselves. I believe they do try to see the idea behind it and see how it works and the connection of everything, really, rooms, rationality, circulation. So in a way, yes, you kind of do have to have luck, but I believe you can pass if you try hard enough. So it is not like if you try like your best that you still have chance to fail because your jury members don't think the same way you do. No, I don't believe in that. Any other questions from public? Yeah, any questions you guys can ask? Are there a lot of Weimar architects in Europe? I believe there are. I know a lot of architecture students. I know two Weimar architects. So I'm not sure if it's a lot, but yeah, there are. There are, and since there are students, there will be more. What time did you go home usually from uni? Did you have free time? My uni actually closed at like 10, 11 or something. It closed at like about 11. Most of the times I would have to go to a friend's house because we would have like a group work or anything, and at that times I would be home at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Some people prefer to do group work via Skype, but we didn't. So I would go to my friend's house and we would do our group project, and at the end I would just go home. But sometimes it can be really late. What are your objectives or goals in architecture for the near future and in the coming 5 to 10 years? Right now, I am, for instance, self-employed. I also work at the architecture office at the same time, but I want to open my own office in like 5 to 7 years, maybe. And from that, I want to grow. But the idea is that architects now, it's quite hard for an architect to open his own office by himself or by herself. So you kind of have to find other architects who you would like to open your office with. Actually, at least in Belgium, it's quite hard to open your own office by yourself. So my goal for the upcoming 5 to 10 years is opening my office and going going ahead, going further from that on. What kind of mathematic background do you need before starting architecture? Do architect students often struggle with maths in that study, or is there another subject that causes a lot of problems? For me, it did cause problems, mathematics. I only had 2 hours of mathematics a week. That's why it caused problems for me. Some people they had like 6 to 8 hours mathematics a week, like in secondary school, and they would just like get 100% on mathematics. So it does depends on mathematics in a way only for the mathematics subject in architecture. I would never say don't study architecture because if you don't know mathematics. No, because I didn't know mathematics, let's say, and I still was able to study and graduate as an architect. So the lack of mathematics in your studies in secondary school has no connection to architecture in university, I believe. If you try hard enough, you can pass it. And as I said before, having good friends who can help you and who you will help with other projects are very important. What about the salary or young architects? Are young architects well paid? No, young architects are not well paid. You get a okay salary, I guess, to live. As I said, you have to do 2 years of internship in Belgium after you study architecture. During these 2 years, you start with a certain salary. Right now, I think it is about almost 12 euros an hour only. And during the 2 years, every 6 months, they have to raise it by 2 euros 35 cents an hour. So at the end, like after 2 years, your salary will probably be about like 19 hours an hour, euros an hour. And from that on, it will grow to, I don't know, depending on the office that you are working at. But if you are self-employed, as I said, you can go self-employed and do your internship while working at the architecture office. And if you are self-employed, you are able to have your own clients. Let's say for instance, I have a friend right now who is building. He's not building a house, but he is building a new part to a house he bought, and I am doing this for him. then you can ask your own price. Some people ask like 50 euros an hour. Some go to like 65. But in the beginning, I think it should be less, since you don't know much about it. You still have to learn, and it is like a learning process for yourself. So I would go like lower than 50 or 65, which is a lot right now. Why is it hard for the moment to open your own office? What challenges and kind of problems do you encounter? How are you planning to solve and overcome these? Right now, I cannot open my own office because I have to finish the 2 years of internship, and I still have to learn a lot. At school, you do not learn about the administrational part, about the connections that you have to lay with, how do you say it, with the city, because the architect is actually the one who manages everything about the building. He gets the engineer, he gets the construction worker, the EPB person who does like the installation calculations and stuff, and like everything else. That there are like a lot of stuff an architect has to look at while building or before building a building, before starting the construction, pretty much. So, and that is something you don't really learn at school. At school, you learn to design and all of that. So these other things that I am learning right now, I think it is best to learn them, and I think it will probably take about 4 or 5 years before I am like able to say, I have no problem with building anything right now. Well, I think it will probably take like 2 years in a way. So that's the thing. Actually, before starting your office, you still have to learn a lot, which is mostly administration. Back then, architecture was for me the second option for higher studies. What triggered you to study architecture and to make that choice? Architecture was actually the first and only, no, it was the first choice. My second choice would probably have been IT, because I was actually quite good at programming when I was like 14, 14, 15, 16. I would randomly program stuff, but I would also randomly download SketchUp and start drawing 3D buildings. And I don't know why I did that. I think it was just fun to do it, and probably also because my dad was working in the construction for his whole life. So yeah, and in a way, architecture was always my first option. So yeah, I went for it, and I liked it. I loved it, and my passion for architecture grew from the moment I started studying it. Is there a university in Belgium that's known for teaching architecture in the best, or are they all equal? I have no idea actually if there's one that is the best. The one I studied at in Hasselt, I think was quite good. I do know that the mathematics in Hasselt are harder than in Antwerp. So if you are really scared about the mathematics, I can kind of assure you that in Antwerp it will be kind of easier, because I had a friend that went from Hasselt to Antwerp, and he said that it is way easier in Antwerp, like the mathematics part. But I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is maybe. But like the best university for architecture in Belgium, I'm not sure. But Hasselt is quite good actually. The place I studied is actually quite good. They also give you a lot of options, like I said, for Erasmus, studying abroad, or like internships abroad. Like they help you with everything. And I'm not sure about the other universities. They probably also help you. But about Hasselt, I can assure you they do. Do you think architecture studies are easy? Did you have hard times during your studies, like being overcharged of work, or it was easy studies? No, it wasn't that easy of studies in a way. Um, but in the other way, it was actually still quite fun, which is, I think, very important. If it's not easy, but it is fun to do, then you will continue doing it and you will succeed in it, I believe. And it was hard also in a way for me, as I said, mathematics, chemistry, but also physically not sleeping a lot during your deadlines, at least. When you have deadlines, there were a lot of times for me I couldn't sleep and had to work on the project, had to finish it, and there is some stress involved. But as I said, I was lucky enough to not stress too much. So yeah, it's not easy, but if you like it, like I liked it, it's possible if it's not easy. Any other questions?
So Lisa, I think it was very interesting to. Wait, just one more question here. Lesson. What was
Who are the Ronaldos and Messis in the world of architecture? What projects made them the best and why? Wow. Who are
just to
Ronaldos and
finish.
Messis? In a way, architecture actually also has their own fame, like the famous people, like I said, Peter Zumthor, quite famous. If you ask an architect about him, they know him. Raphael Moneo, Le Corbusier, Miss Van Roo, and everyone. And what project made them the best? I'm not sure if I can answer on that. Yeah, for Peter's Zumthor, for instance, one of his most known project is probably the Term of Halls, but they all have actually so many quite famous buildings that I'm not sure what project made them the best. I think it's also like the innovations they did in architecture, which yeah, they have so many interesting buildings. Like I said, I have no idea which one of them made them the best. A word about the fires that took place on Notre Dame.
You're not
Um,
participating in the contest to rebuild Notre Dame?
no, no. I'm not participating in that contest.
uh, okay.
A word
So
about yeah.
this is gonna be next Ronaldo for architecture. So, so Seth, Data Swan, it was very nice to hear your point of view, your experience. So there are many people who are to us in comments as well. To us first choice, second choice, third choice architecture, but not everybody is ready to do it or are afraid to be too creative or math too good or something like that.
Yeah,
So I think motivation is very important
it is.
factor. So dial the ball with your future
Yeah, so
projects. Now I will head next speaker.
thank
Assalamu
you very
alaikum,
much.
Deresol.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, Hamzat, assalamu
Beautiful.
alaikum. Wow.
Wa alaikum assalam. Do you
Oh,
see and hear me well?
yes.
Suaziki?
See you very good. So Hamzat, it's the same drill as you saw with last speaker. So I will write the questions in chat
Mm-hmm.
and people can add extra questions. So maybe you can already start
Okay.
saying your name, what your studies are, direction, what year you are.
Okay. So March Dogo, I'll be presenting my faculty, the Faculty of Industrial Engineering, and more specifically, Industrial Engineering in Chemistry. So I actually always wanted to become a engineer. As a little kid, I loved making toys of well, plastic bottles, wooden sticks, whatever you can name. I built a lot of things, and I certainly destroyed a lot of things in my childhood. So I was that engineer in me was always there, but I only decided to choose for engineering the last year of my high school. So now I'm 22 years old, and that decision I made 4 years ago. During high school, well, secondary school, I studied math and science. I had 8 hours of mathematics, 4 hours of physics, 3 hours of chemistry, and 3 hours of biology. Um, well, then I decided to study industrial engineering in construction. That was my first year. I made that decision quite fast, actually, after graduating, because a few friends of mine went to study the same, and I actually followed them without thinking my choice through. And my grades were, well, even though I say myself, they were pretty good, but I didn't feel like I was at home at construction. Even though I really liked the industrial engineering, the faculty itself, the specialization wasn't really something for me. So so I changed when I went to the second year. I changed to chemistry, and that's what I've been studying for the past 3 years. So how would I describe an industrial engineer or industrial engineering in general? Um, as the previous speaker Isa explained, he's an architect and he builds certain things. Well, now I'm only talking about construction. He builds certain things, he sketches certain things on a software, but that sketch has to become something in reality as a certain building or certain well, anything. And the bridge between everything that's on paper and everything that is in reality, that's actually how you could describe the function of an engineer. So all the calculations, all the measurings, all everything that has to do with that is are tasks of an engineer. So as I said, I study at the University of Antwerp, at the campus Groenenborger in Wilrijk, and we have four specializations. So I mentioned two already: the construction and the chemistry I'm doing now. The other two are electromechanics and ICT. So there's enough choice for everyone. The courses are they can be divided in three large parts actually. The first one I would say is the theoretical part. Then you have the seminars or the, the practical courses, and you also have the laboratory work. So the theoretical part would be approximately like 50%, and then 25 and 25 for the seminars where you make certain exercises, and 25% of the laboratory work. Um, the main subjects I would say would be like analytical chemistry, the chemistry where you analyze certain samples, which you will do very often later when you're working at a factory. I could give you an example. For example, a factory that makes beverages, they have a malfunction in one of their storing rooms, for example, and a certain metal has polluted the beverages, and you have to analyze whether it is toxic, whether the quantities are high enough for the beverages to be toxic, yes or no. So sample analysis, that's everything that has everything that has to do with sample analysis is analytical chemistry. You have organic chemistry, which is mainly the production of polymers. We have that in the second year, and in the third year we have two subjects: thermodynamics. We have fluid dynamics. So a very large quantity of different topics that will help you become a very good engineer. But the main thing here is actually you're developed as an engineer and not as a construction worker or as a chemist. You will not only be able to work in a laboratory to reproduce whatever or reproduce a sample or analyze a sample or whatever. You will also be able to have a higher function in a company. For example, in the HR, that's perfectly possible. In the HR of a chemical company, I could have that position too, because during our first 3 years we have courses like not only chemistry or thermodynamics that I mentioned, but we also have micro and macro economics in a very large in a very small quantity. We have law, we have business management in the second year. So you're actually the university will develop you as an engineer and not per se as a chemist or per se as a IT guy or a construction worker or anything. Um, I could talk about the exams. Oh, okay. I will perhaps answer the question first, which not high school or vice versa. I actually opted to go for the university degree because I felt like I talked with a lot of people that were studying. I knew a few people, well, I knew a lot of people that were studying industrial engineering at the University of Antwerp when I finished high school, and they gave me the advice to go for the university because the degree has, to be very honest, a higher value than the degree of a college, because the responsibilities you have as a industrial engineer who has finished the university are much higher, and that means if your responsibilities are higher, your salary will be higher, your work will be more diverse. So it only has advantages to go for the university degree, even though it's a little bit harder. But if you do if you do enough during the week and let, don't save all your um, well, if you don't study until the last moment and if you do everything systematically during the week, then I'm pretty sure the university degree is much better option. Well, yes, about the exams. So those can also be divided into three parts. We have the theoretical exams, we have the laboratory, and sometimes we have the simulation or the software exams. So the theoretical ones are very obvious, just a written exam. And then sometimes you have, for example, 20 or 25% of your final grade for that subject that comes from the laboratory work. That's during the year. Each week you have 4 to 6 hours of laboratory work for a certain topic, but usually you have 2 or 3 topics that have a laboratory work. So in total, you're 12 to 16 hours in the laboratory easily. So that's on average 20 to 25%. And we also sometimes have software or simulation exams. For example, for the third year subject, separation technology, we have a certain software that is used in the industry, and it is not, you're not obligated, but it's very recommended to know how to use that software. So at university, they teach us, and they also, um, well, examine us, of course. I'm now finishing my official fourth year, but I'm in my third year of industrial engineering in chemistry, because as I said, I changed my specialization, and I have 1 year to go here in Belgium. The total span of it's only 4 years. Usually a master degree you get in 5 years, 3 years bachelor and 2 years master. But my at my faculty it's 3+1, so I only have 1 year left to go, which is actually pretty good. What do you have to good at your faculty? Well, I would definitely say you have to have a background of mathematics, at least 4 to 5 hours, because I've known people who, for example, finished human sciences at their high schools, and they tried to they started the same year as me, and to be very honest, they failed miserably. So you have to have a certain base of mathematics. 4 hours, I would say, would be the bare minimum, 4 to 5. Um, and if you work systematically, doing every week, all you don't usually get tasks or projects. You only have laboratory work. You have to finish. You do your laboratory, and next week you hand in the paper about the laboratory. But they don't give you homework as they do at high schools. So that's very That's something that's very tricky for students that are starting university. That's only for the university. At the colleges, they do it. They give you more homework, but at the university, they do it barely, which means you will have a lot of free time, and you will have to spend that free time not only on your hobbies and such on, but you will also have to work each and every week. Um, the other things you would have to be good at, well, chemistry and physics, of course. But I've also known a girl who studied chemistry, pure chemistry, at her high school, and she was also struggling because of the mathematical aspect of the faculty. So you have to have a good mix of both sciences, scientific subjects as chemistry and physics, and also a mathematical background. Do you have an idea on when you where I want to work when I finish my studies? I would definitely start, well, basically, here in Belgium, and especially in Antwerp, we have a very large harbor, and here we have a lot of chemical companies, factories, very large ones, international ones. So I would definitely start here to gain a certain amount of experience. You have all the possibilities uh, to work here because the engineering profession is actually a bottleneck profession. As the last 15 years, the industry is growing rapidly. The demand for engineers is only rising. So even if you start today and you will finish in 4 or 5 years this faculty, you will definitely find work within a few weeks. You won't have to be looking for a job for a very long time. So me personally, I would start here in Belgium, and perhaps go abroad, do projects in Southeast Asia. The chemistry over there is developing rapidly too. Perhaps in the United Arab Emirates, in the petroleum chemistry, why not? But it's very important to have to gain experience first. And as I finished the as I next year would finish the university here, it's for me easier to start gaining experience here and only then going abroad. But that's short term, I could say. But if I would have a long term idea, I would definitely like to start my own um, engineer. Well, how do you call it in English? A an engineers bureau, a bureau of engineers that someone who works for. Well, basically, I forgot the English word, but I think you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. Um, what are the most difficult subjects? The most difficult subject for me personally is organic chemistry because from high school I didn't have any of the organic chemistry, even though I had 3 hours per week. Uh, and not only for me, organic chemistry is definitely something a lot of students are struggling with. And of course, at number one would be mathematics. You have the first 2 years, we have four subjects of mathematics, so divided per semester. And I would say at least 50 to 60% fail their first exam and usually do a re-examination in August. And well, now I'm talking about the re-examinations. That's something um, I wanted to talk about. Um, the best way to handle re-examinations is to just not have them. As I already said a dozen times, work not only at my faculty, but for any new student, work regularly each week, systematically work, do your tasks on time, and don't say to yourself like I'm going to study the last week because the last week you will have to do something else, and you only have 6 days and 5 days. 4 and 3, and the last 2 days you won't be able to study the subject properly, and then you will have an August full of re-examinations, which is actually, well, you'll be jealous of the students that are of your friends that have done more work during the year. And also it's very helpful to work during the summer to gain experience. It's a little bit tricky, especially in the chemical industry, to if you don't have any connections to someone, if you don't have a uncle or a father or a friend who's working, who has a certain position in the factory, to get into the factory. But fortunately, um, last year I had the opportunity to work here at the port. In It was in September, I think, yes. Um, and to be very honest, I gained a lot of experience. So keep your summer free so you can go work during the holidays. That's what I would suggest. Which subjects are the most difficult in your opinion? Well, I think I already explained that. Have you had your examination or solved that? Well, of course, as almost all students, I have had re-examinations, and the main advice I would give is actually to rest a little bit after your first exams. So after the June exams, take a little break, 1 or 2 weeks, because if you start immediately, you will be overworking yourself. That's not a good thing, because before the exams start, you won't be focusing as much. Just make sure you have enough time, that you start early, but don't forget to have a little rest. And the re-examinations, there are a lot of subjects, a lot of professors that, well, I would say reuse the questions. So if you, for example, in January or in June, you're not prepared for an exam, just still attend the exam, do the exam, and try at least to remember the questions. If you didn't manage to properly study the subject, or you didn't have enough time due to other subject which is more important, still go to that exam. Try to remember, try to write down the questions, and during the month of July or August, when you're studying the examinations, you can study based on the questions you've written down, because those are the things that certain professor thinks are the most important. So that's an advice I would definitely give to new students. How Okay, with the corona measures? Well, basically, the last year I didn't have school at all, but they've mentioned a few times that this school year, 2021, that the classes will be divided into two or three parts, and that certain subjects will be given both physically, so in the classroom, or both in the classroom, and some will be, how would I explain it, recorded and put on a certain platform, so you can rewatch them later. Um, so what they've told us is that the newer students, so the first and second year students, they will have mostly all of their subjects physically, because it's much easier for them to have to talk to the professor if they have certain questions and such on. But for the older students, they will be divided in two or three groups, and each week with a rotation system. Each week, for example, group one will have a physical class, and the other two will have they can rewatch the the class live, or they can rewatch it later. So they're still not sure about how they will handle it, but the courses will be definitely starting this year. It's not that they will only be online like last year. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, of course. Of my choice of university, to be honest, I first wanted to go to Ghent um, and study there, the same faculty, but studied there, as I've heard um, as I've heard that the professors they guide you much better. They guide their students much better during the year. So that together with well, actually, that was the main reason I wanted to go to Ghent to study there. But of course, it's a bit of a problem to go to Ghent each day by train, and going on a dorm over there wasn't very viable for me either. So I just opted to stay here in Antwerp. And to be honest, I don't really regret it, because now talking with people who studied there in Ghent, there is looking now back to then, I actually think the people were, how would I say, not per se lying, but there's no large difference, I would say, between the universities. So choose the one that is closest to you, because the closer that the university is to you, the the more time you will have. Of course, you won't have to travel each day to a different city, and you will have more time to focus on your studies. So actually, I'm very happy with the choice of my university. Yes. Do you have to have internships? Well, you can have an internship as your bachelor thesis or your master thesis, but you can also do the bachelor thesis at your university. So how did I do my thesis last year? Um, of course, at the university, there are different PhD students that are working on certain topics, and I just assisted them and did a very small portion of their project. But of course, there also, if you search for, well, how they explained to us, if you want to, you can stay here at the university, but if you want to, you can also contact a certain company and ask whether you can do your bachelor thesis there, and that's actually a form of internship. So yes, definitely you have internships, but not necessarily, I would say. The combination of work and studies is definitely possible. But again, I'm saying this for like the 20th time. Work systematically. Don't leave all your matter to the last moment. If you do everything, if you keep your studies up to date, I would say it's definitely possible to go work on a Saturday, or perhaps even during the week for 1 or 2 days. I know people who work multiple days a week, so that's not a problem. And me also, the first 2 years, I did combine work and studying. The work was just 1 day a week on a Saturday, but it's definitely possible, and more days per week are also possible. So yes, it's if you manage your time management is very essential. But if you have that under control, then combination of work and studies is no issue, I think. And student dorm or do well, I live in Antwerp, and the university is also here in Antwerp, only like 30 minutes by bus. So I just opted, as I already said, opted to stay here in Antwerp instead of traveling to Ghent each and every day. and I do not regret making that decision just to stay here, because at the end of the day, there's not a lot of difference between the degrees you will get after your 4 years. So just choose the university that is closest to you, because spending 2 to 3 hours a day just for traveling is not worth it. You will lose a lot of time. Going on a dorm is also possible, but I would not suggest it, as well, a dorm can be quite expensive. On a monthly basis, it's like the average is between 300 and 400 euros, I think. So you will have to cook for yourself. You will have to clean everything by yourself, and that also takes a lot of time. So if you have the possibility to stay with your parents at home, just choose that. It will be a lot easier, I would say. My plan for the future, well, I would definitely start here in Belgium, working as an engineer in the chemical sector, mainly due to the salary. You earn a, a good buck, you could say, as a chemical engineer here in Belgium. Then after gaining experience for a few years, I could try working abroad, for example, on international projects. That would be definitely something I would be interested in. And perhaps at the end, in like 20 years, 10, 15, 20 years, start my own engineering bureau um, on a smaller scale, of course. Erasmus student exchange, common year faculty. Well, Erasmus it has the same disadvantages as the dorm I mentioned usually, because not all, well, some universities, they provide dorms inside their university, and they provide the students of food and everything, but this is not always the case. So if you go abroad, um, I have I know a person that has been to, I think it was Indonesia. In I forgot the university, but anyhow, it was a university that was specialized in petroleum chemistry. And he told me that going there, it was a very good experience, of course, but it was a hard time, because you have to manage everything yourself, and combining that with working to earn something, if you're abroad, and it's not always easy to do everything simultaneously. But the experience you gain, on the other hand, the experience you gain as an Erasmus student um, is something of great value. So I would say, if you make the choice, think about it, and if you make the choice, make sure you're 100% certain of it. Maybe one day we work abroad, for example, in Chechnya. Yes, that would be definitely a possibility. But now I don't think the chemical industry is very developed in Chechnya itself. Well, in Russia, the petroleum industry is definitely developed, like giants like Gazprom. But in Chechnya, particularly, um, I don't think it's at this moment developed enough to go there and work. That's what I think. But if there will be a development in like 10 years, perhaps, that would be a very good opportunity to go work there. Can you give me some advice to people who want to start studying engineering, or yeah, also a general advice to students? Well, the golden advice I already gave is keeping your keeping your subjects up to date, studying each week. Don't leave your exams to the last moment, but definitely another advice I would give is having enough free time doing, for example, sports, other hobbies perhaps, just a combination of everything. Don't only focus on your studies because you will get tired of it very quickly. So try to manage your day very very try to manage your day. And something else I would suggest is going to bed early, because that's something a lot of students, including me, are struggling with. um, I would, well, I don't know, those are the main points of advice I would give. Yes, the questions from the public, they're always welcome, of course. um, General advice, well, I I don't know, perhaps, what are your hobbies? Uh, I really like doing sports, uh, football, and going to the gym, and also, of course, having a great time with friends. Those things are important too in a student life, but you have to have a good ratio of everything, I would say. The importance of my field, well, the I could give you many examples actually. The cars we're driving, those are running on gas, on petroleum. So that's the petroleum industry. We have plastic everywhere at this day and age. So the polymer industry is also very important. Actually, the chemical industry is booming, I would say, right now, more than ever. And there are a lot of importances of the chemical industry. What kind of projects do you do? Do you produce self papers, models? Um, no, the you mean projects as in laboratory work. We usually have analytical and organic laboratory. The analytical laboratory is usually making samples, trying to learning to use new analytical instruments that are commonly used in the industry, making good conclusions, making good papers. That's also very important, because that's something that you will have to do later too. And the organic chemistry, that's more making certain compounds, extracting some certain compounds from a total mixture. That's the organic chemistry. Those are the main laboratory projects we have during our first 3 years. What's the difference between a chemist and chemical engineer? Well, a as I already mentioned, an engineer is developed during the student years, not only as a chemist, but we also have subjects like economics or law, because eventually we can end up in certain um, profession, well, not profession, but an engineer can also end up in the HR of a chemical industry. So we have to have a certain background of economics, of law, and certain things. Not only are we chemists, but we're engineers in the first place. So we get everything that has to do with chemistry, everything that a regular chemist can do in the laboratory, uh, making making samples, doing tests, running certain instruments. But that's only a small portion of our abilities. We can also have a manager function in a in a company, in a chemical company, and that you can only, well, you have to have a all-round background, I would say, to have a manager function. So that's the main difference between an engineer in chemistry and a pure chemist. Uh, which subject do you hate the most? Oh wait, I skipped the question. Since green energy and eco-friendly material substances are getting more and more talked about, are the classes getting more and more involved? Yes, definitely. For example, we had a subject called polymers last year, and there they divided the total subject in the classical polymers and the green polymers, and we looked at polymers from two different points of view, I would say. And it's really interesting to see the world developing um, from the classical polymers, the classical industry, to the more green industry, as you mentioned. And green energy is also one of those things that are important. The the energy efficiency is also a lot talked about a lot during the subjects. The efficiency is very important. What subject do you hate the most? Me personally, I hated organic chemistry. I was never quite good at it. But that's perhaps because I didn't have a lot of organic chemistry during my high school years. Um, but yeah, that was a subject I actually hated the most. Do you have to good feeling about finding work studies? Is it well paid? What do you mean by having a good feeling? And about it being well paid? Yes, definitely. Definitely here in Belgium, the if you, for example, have an engineering degree in chemistry, you can become a process operator, for example, and a process operator can earn up to 3,000, 4,000 euro a month easily. Uh, I have to mention though that's with the night shifts, so you have to you have to have the will to work during the night. But I'm just giving you numbers to 3,000 euros, 4,000 euros are just average numbers for a beginner process operator here in Belgium. So it's definitely well paid, but you can also end up as an not as a process operator, but as an engineer, as a pure engineer, and then you have more options, of course, options like getting a car from your company, having a free, well, a free phone, a free note, laptop, all those kind of options together with your salary. So about it being well paid, yes, definitely. It's the chemical industry is very well paid, I would say. But I didn't understand your first question about having a good feeling about finding work. Um, do you perhaps mean whether it's the, yes, definitely, definitely. Engineers will be always in demand, I think. Well, not only me, I've talked about it with my professors too. And they're certain that the industry, not only the chemical industry, but the industry overall worldwide will grow, and that the engineers from now on will be only more and more in demand. So I don't personally think that people who are studying engineering have to worry about not finding work. Which courses do you need to attend? Is present at all courses recommended? Well, certain courses, the laboratory courses are you're obligated to attend them. But the theoretical courses you can of course choose yourself. But I would suggest especially in your first and second year, to go to all the courses, not only the laboratory work, as you will understand how the student will how the professor will ask certain questions. What will he each professor is of course different. Each professor has certain things he thinks are more important. So if you attend the classes, you can, well, learn how the professor is himself, and you can expect certain questions on the exams, which is very important. And if you go to all of the courses, um, it will be much easier in your first year. So definitely yes. And later on in your third or fourth year, then it's up to you. If you really think that working on your own, not per se attending the classes, is working better for you, then yes, you can certainly go work during the week or go to the gym or whatever. But the first 2 years are very, well, difficult, and to readjust from a high school way of studying to a university way of studying. So that's very important. Uh, we get more practical or theoretical. The of course the theoretical courses are the majority of my faculty, for like an average, I would say 25 to 30 hours a week. That's like 60% and then 30% laboratory work, and the rest would be like exercise seminars or simulation or software courses. Do you know how to make crystal? Well, I'm not going to say that online, but you can always hit me up in private and we can discuss that. Do you want to get a PhD in the future? Well, to be honest, when I started studying, that was something I was looking forward to maybe do a PhD. But now, of course, if you really want it, I'm only encouraging you. But a PhD is at a very high level, and me personally, I won't be going for a PhD. I'd rather start working after after getting my degree, instead of spending more, like 4 or 5 years on 3, 4, 5 years on a PhD. If there are any questions, oh wait, I skipped one question. Oh no. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them, of course.
So on that, I think that was all. It was very interesting to hear about engineering, studies in engineering,
I
because
I
yes,
hoped I hope I could provide you some inside information
yes,
for the new students,
because it's
especially.
very important profession actually, because we will need more and more engineers in all fields, because in future
True,
world is
true.
only developing faster and faster and all technologies. So yeah, as you said,
Yes. So
polymers, everything is around us, microchips. So you
mhm.
see SpaceX flying, you see many nice
So I
developments.
would only encourage I
Mhm,
would only encourage new students to go study engineering.
mhm. And also, girls, boys, doesn't matter. Everybody should
Oh
go.
yes, that's something I wanted to mention. The majority is of course male at our faculty, but in general, but chemistry has, well, I think more girls than the other three specializations. The electromechanics and constructions, you don't really see girls there. But IT and chemistry, that's more like 50-50. between male and female students, and the faculty is only growing each and every year. When I started, well, basically it was the second year of my university. When I switched to chemistry, we were with like 40 people, I think. And now the first year students have laboratory with 65 or 70 people. So in like 3 years, it already has grown with 50%. So as you said, the future is
Yeah, that's very
engineering.
important. And what about if you want to switch in your masters? Is it possible if you say, I want to do IT engineering? Is it still possible? Or do you have to make some connection years?
In,
For
in,
it?
in your master, you mean?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In your master, it's not really recommended because the first year, the courses are very general and all the specializations have almost, uh, I think it was 48 of the 60 points are the same for everyone, and only 12 or 15 or so were specifically for your specialization. But in the second year, it's already 30 and more and more. And third year, it was like 40, I think. So if you want to switch in your master year, then it will be very, very difficult because you're very specialized. Well, I am very specialized in chemistry and I don't have the background of IT. So if you want to do a switch, I would recommend you doing it in the beginning of your.
Yeah. Okay.
But another thing, you perhaps you mean switching to switching from chemistry to IT is not very recommended, but switching
Mm-hmm.
from if you finished industrial engineering, you can always switch to civil engineering.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's a
From high school to university,
possibility.
you mean? Yes.
No, from university industrial engineering
Ah, there's
to
also this one. Okay.
university civil engineering.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But that's only in Ghent, I think, civil engineering.
But you can also go from there's in high school also engineering. Yes. So you can
That's
also
also
switch
possible.
university as
Yes,
well.
that's also possible. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
with a with one extra year in between.
So maybe some
Then you have two
people
masters.
who are not sure of their capacity to do
Yeah,
university, they can go to high school and still upgrade their.
perhaps,
Uh,
perhaps. It will be 2 years longer, I think.
mhm,
One extra year in between, and then one year extra year at the end. But it will be a lot easier. You will have more breathing space, I would say.
mhm,
So if you're not, as you said, if you're not certain of your capabilities, try that route.
yeah. It's actually a self-discipline because in high school you have the house works as in a normal school and you
Hmm.
have more exams. But in university,
Hmm.
it's just two times in a year and you should be ready. Otherwise,
Yeah,
you can try a
yeah,
third
and
time,
you,
but
but it's better to finish the
yes.
first two times, I think.
Mhm. Thank you very much for
Okay,
sharing with us on that. Dalet to boil.
there is Masera, well.
Sound. So, welcome back. Everybody can hear me. Um, Now we are waiting for Mohmad-Amin. Normally is accepting. So yes, we will record this webinar and we will put it on YouTube for 1 month, something like that, because it's now the moment that people make decision about their studies. So you can rewatch it until October, I think, half October. So you can send them to your friends, to your family. Yes, Mohammed is here. And yeah, if you have any suggestions for us for other webinars, because now with Corona measures, we cannot do any physical events, especially in Belgium. It's getting worse again. So uh, if you have any ideas, always welcome. You can write on our Instagram page. You can write you in chat and comments as well. So, Mohmad-Amin is connecting. Oh, Mohmad-Amin, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Welcome to our webinar. You,
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
you're just back from internship, I understood. So you're
Mhm.
a real good student, even now studying. I mean, I will exit now from this webinar, and I will write answer the questions in the chat box. You can
Mhm.
see the chat. You can see the chat next to your video.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so I'll write the questions there. Also,
Yeah.
the public can ask you the questions, and yeah, maybe you can already start with introducing yourself, saying your name, you're studying,
Yeah.
your university.
Yeah. My name is Mohmad-Amin. So I study medicine. I'm a student of medicine and currently just finished my 5th year um, in the University of Ghent, and I have one more year to study if I get accepted into the 6th year, and that's about it for what I study. Um, Now, as for why I chose this direction, um, I would say my interest is always laid in science ever since I was pretty much a kid. I've always liked dissecting stuff, um, dissecting as in not live animals. I mean, like dissecting just stuff in general. Um, so yeah, I've always been interested in how things work, um, and I knew when I was like in the 5th year of high school, so when I was like 17, that I wanted to study medicine. um, and yeah, I always liked to I like the idea of helping people and feeling fulfilled uh, through life doing that. I could imagine myself doing this type of work till I was 65, maybe even 70. Um, and that's pretty much why I chose it. Um, um, how did I choose it? Well, let's see. Well, the process was pretty much like it was almost like a process of elimination. I knew I wanted to study science. Uh, I knew I wanted to have a stable life. I knew I wanted to um, the specific scientific subjects that I was most interested in were those concerning uh, the the biological aspects of life, the human body. Um, yeah, and that's pretty much how I got to medicine. I did that when I was like in my the 5th year of high school, like I said, and that's pretty much I mean, that's kind of the ideal time to do it because for the entry exam, for the entrance exam, that's the knowledge you have to have a good grasp of the knowledge between from your 5th and your last years of high school. Um, what do you have to be good at in your faculty? Oh man, there's a lot of things you have to be good at. Medicine is like you have to be a scientist. You have to be able to know how stats work. You have to have some kind of insight in how maths work, which is why they also uh, uh, which is why math is always also a part of the entrance exam. um, you have to be good at just memorizing and studying because there's a lot of work. It's like yeah, it's a lot of work to study especially in the first 4 years before you even get to have a taste of what it feels like to be a doctor. uh, you only your internships only start at your 5th year. Before that, it's like junior internships, where you get to just observe what a doctor does for 3 days for each discipline for a total of 12 days. And so, yeah, before that, you just have to, it's a lot of pressure to just grind the studies to know to have discipline for it. Um, did I have a lot of chemistry related courses in the first year? Yeah, the first year is um, yeah, it's the year of science. It's the first year is the year of science where you have to study chemistry, statistics, and a lot of the basics like physics too. But that's about it. The rest of medicine is almost entirely focused on the human body. What was the hardest year in university? Oh man, I would say it was the third year. The third year is basically the year where you start having pathology courses, which means you're done studying the human body, you're done studying the basics of science, you actually start studying diseases, their symptoms, um, and yeah, it was hard because there was a lot of just pure. Uh, just pure stuff you had to remember. There was no logic. I mean, there was some logic behind it, but there was no. It was a lot of memorizing, pretty much, and that's why that was the hardest year for me. How did I prepare for the entrance exam? Um, well, it was difficult for me, at least. To be honest, I only passed on my and I was lucky for this because it would not be possible anymore. I think with the changes in place, I only passed from at my fourth attempt, which means I lost 1 year after finishing high school. So right after finishing high school, I went for my first attempt right at the beginning of summer, and that was just my attempt to just see how it was, without really actually preparing anything. I just wanted to see how it went. So I went there, obviously didn't pass. And then I went for my second attempt at the end of summer. And that went better, but I just barely didn't manage to pass. And the year afterwards, I went again, went for it again at the beginning of summer. And for some reason, the exam that time around, even though I really prepared, was pretty difficult for me, and I only passed then at the end of that second summer, which is my fourth attempt. So I basically lost 1 year trying to pass. Um, and as for how I prepared, it just um, yeah, you have to look online for the there's like at least in Belgium there's a list of subjects that ev- that the student has to know that are going to be asked on the entrance exam. You have to look at that, and you just have to look for all those bullet points in your scientific courses in your last 2 years of high school, which is physics, chemistry, maths, and biology. Those are the four subjects that they ask you for. And as the second part of the exam involves just reading a text and answering questions based on the text within the span of 1 hour. So you have to be, I mean, kind of good at being able to analyze text. I always managed to pass for that one, but it wasn't that difficult for me. But I even though I always managed to pass, I only barely passed every time. So there's there's ought to be some people that have problems with it, that aren't good at reading fast and aren't good at just picking out the most important thing, the most important details in a piece of text and doing it fast and answer the questions fast. Was it discouraging to do? Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was. Yeah, of course it was. But I just didn't know what that was. I knew that's what I wanted to do, so I just went for it. There was no. Yeah, there was no plan B for me, really. Um, what are the most difficult subjects? Let's see. You mean in the entrance exam or the education of medicine in general in university? I would say for me it would have to be statistics. That's the subject, even though it doesn't really take a lot of study hours. For the little amount of time that it does take, it was pretty difficult for me. I wasn't that good at stats, but I managed to, after like taking that along with me for like a year, I managed to pass it. So you kind of, I mean, that was personally what was most difficult for me. But there are very large like compiled courses in med school. So what you have is like you have this entire exam that's about ophthalmology, dermatology, and something else. So they're not separate; they're together, and you have to study both those disciplines and pass for one exam. So that's a lot of material that you have to digest. Um, and I would say that's for most people that's going to be the most difficult part of medicine. But it's yeah, that's just two disciplines. It's the same for all other disciplines. So you have neurology, psychology, and neurosurgery, three disciplines linked together, and that's a recurring theme in the subject of medicine. I mean, in the education of medicine, and pretty much all of those compiled courses are difficult to pass. Um, did I ever? No, never thought. No, I knew I had to go for medicine ever since. Yeah. Uh, for my bachelor's years, it was pretty much every year because I was still adjusting to the study rhythm, finding what study patterns work for me, what methods of study work for me. And it was only in the fourth year, which is my first year of masters, that I actually had a grasp on how to study effectively. And that's when I started actually passing for exams on my first try. Uh, well, for me, there was no more studying to do when the Corona crisis started. Um, Yeah, for me, it was just internships. That was right when my internships hit. I remember in February when my first internship started that the panic was just starting. And how has it been? How has it been for the internships? Well, I've had to almost entirely, yeah, I had to skip entirely 1 month of internships because of the COVID measures. And they just didn't find a replacement for me. And eventually on the last week of that month, they put me in like an elderly care home where I could help with testing for corona and with just checking their parameters and helping elderly people, and that's what I did for as a replacement. What is my internship now? Now I'm in emergency medicine, which is pretty much the most interesting. Yeah, it's the most interesting internship for a student, at least. I'm not sure I would like to do the job because it's really stressful. I mean, it requires a lot of shift work. But for the student, it's pretty much the best internship because you get to do a lot and you get to learn a lot. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's um, that's something I've been thinking about a lot. And um, just let me repeat the question. The question is what specialization I want to choose. Yeah, I when I started, I knew I just wanted to just study for a general practitioner. I wasn't that into the whole. Uh, I just wasn't interested in being a doctor whose entire life revolved around just being a doctor, and just which is pretty much the case for like most surgeons, most internal medicine specialists. They just, yeah, just some type of specialties just live inside the hospital, and I was never interested in that kind of work. So I knew from the start that I just wanted a more a relaxed, like a balanced lifestyle where I could spend time with family. So I was highly interested when I started in general practice. But over the years, which is something I wish people had taught me before I started. Uh, I learned that there were other specialties that are interesting and that don't require a lot of urgency work. Um, so they're also um, good viable options for somebody who wants to have a good balanced life. So these specializations include things like dermatology, ophthalmology, psychiatry, um, youth and adolescent psychology. Psychiatry. Sorry, and I think to some extent radiology too, depending on what type of radiologist you want to become. So what my current interests are mainly in general practice, ophthalmology, and psychiatry. Those are my three interests right now, but I still have to complete the internships for all of those. Still haven't had those yet. I've completed five different disciplines of internships so far. I have a few more to go, and I just want to see how it goes there. I make my choice depending on what I like the most. Uh, well, my two main, I have two main friends that I share notes with and have a good connection and bond with. Uh, one is Turkish and the other is an Afghan. As for the others, yeah, the thing is that medicine students are, I think, some of the best, like most easygoing as in character wise, to get to know and to just have good relations. I mean, yeah, relationships with. They're really reliable. They won't try to do something behind your back or something. I mean, they're pretty cool, and I have good relationships with a few, like 10 to 20, 30 students that I know pretty well. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah. I feel they're all pretty decent. Uh, there are some differences with, so am I happy with my choice of university? Yeah. I mean, I didn't get the whole obsession with the university choice itself. I wasn't too bothered by it because I always, like I said, I always just wanted to become a general practitioner. Um, I just wanted to go to the university that was closest to where I live, so I don't have to go through the stress of being on the train for like 2 hours going to Leuven. So I just went to Ghent, and yeah, that's for traveling for like 2 hours. Uh, 2 hours to your destination and back on a single day. That's a lot of time, and that can be really stressful. So I would advise people to just just pick for what gives you the least stress. I wouldn't really obsess over what university is the most prestigious. um, I don't think there's that much of a difference. At least I haven't heard a compelling argument for it until now, unless you want to get a PhD or something later on. I would Maybe then you should go to Leuven, where it's more known to be prestigious worldwide in terms of research. So if you want to go for something like that, I would say go to Leuven. But um, for the rest, it really doesn't matter, I think. Do you have any free time as well? You do. um, yeah, I mean, it depends on what type of student you want to be. If you want to, the thing about medicine is it's a really competitive field. Um, so at the October this year, as a 6-year student, I have to make my choices for my what's it? It's called in Dutch. It's called co-assistentschappen, which means I work with assistants. Assistants are people that are graduates from medicine and that are trying to get their specialty right now. So I have to work with them, and that's a more like advanced type of internship. And so I have to make those three choices right now in October, and I have to do those internships. And the results, how I perform in those internships, will decide what the professors will think of me when I make my choice for what type of specialty I want to do. So, and it's really competitive. It's like, if you want to be a neurosurgeon, if you want to be a plastic surgeon, if you want to be uh, an internal specialist for internal medicine, yeah, you have to get some really really good grades, because it's a really competitive field. And I've noticed, like, even for some subjects where I have like a 17 out of 20, I notice when I look at the percentile distribution, which means the how many students did better than me, how many students did worse than me, and how many students have the same score as me. I notice that even with a score like 17 out of 20, I'm like on right on average. So that means like half or 40% of people scored higher than that. So that's yeah, it's really competitive field where the stakes are high. So if you want to go for something really complex like plastic surgery or neurosurgery where there's like one pick every year, you won't have a lot of free time. But if you just want to go for general practice um, or something less competitive, like I don't know, uh, yeah, something less competitive, like for example, psychiatry, ophthalmology. I mean, they're all kind of competitive. There's always limited spots, of course, but um, yeah, I would say that people that are going for general practice have a lot of free time, relatively speaking, and those that want to go for the top, that they don't really have a lot of free time because they have to, on top of studying, they have to be in contact with their professors, they have to make good relationships with their professors, they have to volunteer to help them with research, to get their name on a published paper. And having your name on a published paper really helps when the board of professors eventually make the pick for who gets to yeah who they're going to choose for the specialty. um I'm sorry, I don't understand Ruslan's question. Wait, hold on. um I mean, what can I give? What advice can I give to students studying in different areas? I'm not too sure, but I mean, I think this is general advice that will work for most subjects. I would say for most subjects, with some exceptions like engineering, where the first year is really difficult. I would say for most subjects, spend your first year um, figuring out what the best method for you is for studying. Figure out, get your schedule in order, get your study methodology in order. It's not a huge disaster if you don't figure it all out within the first year. Um, make friends inside your discipline, so you have a lot of people to ask questions to if you don't understand something, so you have somebody to share notes with. um, Generally speaking, the first year is the um, easiest year in terms of workload. It's hard in terms of adaptation, but in terms of workload, it's the easiest, generally speaking. And I would say use that free time that you have in your first year to adapt as much as you can, to just learn how to get your student life in order, I would say. um, how I handle stressful situations. um, I mean, personally, for me, that as a Muslim, it helps to keep the prayer, um, to have a good diet, to exercise, um, to just occasionally, yeah, like um, you have to know that there's something rewarding. There's going to be something rewarding beyond the stress, and it helps if you have a good, stable life to that you can fall back on when the stressful situation is over with. um, because the thing is, with stress and with pain, it's a lot easier to withstand it if you know that you're doing it for a reason. If you know that there's something you love, um, that you're trying to protect, that you're trying to uh, make proud of you. Um, if, for example, if there was a stray bullet, nobody would try to get in the way of the bullet to get himself hit, possibly get themselves killed. But if that bullet were to hit your child, your daughter, your mother, somebody you love, I think a lot of people would say that they would jump in front of that bullet. I would say it's the same for um yeah, pain and stressful situations. Just have something that you just have something, a sort of anchor in your life that uh holds you together. um have I combined work and studies? Occasionally I have, yes. uh but the last few years it's been really difficult to do so. The last time I worked was as a student job was in, I think, in uh yeah, the second semester of fourth year, which is like a year ago. That's when I worked, and it was, I mean, it was doable. I would say it's a doable thing for most people. Um, yeah, but just it just didn't work for me at this time because I had a lot of stress with my thesis. Um, so yeah, that's about it. Um, is internship paid? The internships that you do in your master's years are not paid. So that's a total of a year and a half of internships, where you just get to basically, I don't know, follow the doctors around, ask them questions, um, ask them if there's something that you can do, and so yeah, you don't get paid in that situation. But after you're done and you want to specialize in something, or you want to become a general practitioner, you do get paid. And the pay is, I would say, around, for pretty much for everyone, for every specialty, the same. It's about 1,500 in net worth. um, so yeah, even if you go for something like the most difficult thing like surgery, you're going to get paid the same as a general practitioner in training. But after you're done with that, the compensation just differs a lot more. Um, I used to go home every day back when I was actually following lectures. Um, but personally, traveling like that every day is just not something for me. Um, I don't like it. It just takes all my motivation away. I don't like studying on the train, although I do it occasionally. Um, so I thought at first I was going to be able to use the time that I pretty much waste on the train and on uh, the bus and metro or whatnot to just get my studies in order. But it just didn't work for me. Um, but yeah, I had to. That's the only option I had at the time. So I just took a train every day. And but I was lucky when the third bachelor approached. The medical faculty in our school in University of Ghent was one of the first ones to implement a system of recording lectures. So ever since then, I was able to study at home. Uh, so yeah, that's about it. For all those lectures, I was just able to stay at home and study. But for the practical lectures, which was about like once a week, I had to still uh, travel. But it wasn't that difficult. Traveling once a week is pretty acceptable. Yeah. Some advice to people who want to start studying medicine. There's so much to say about medicine, and there's so much I could talk about right now. I don't know, maybe I could talk for an hour about just things I wish I knew when I was just starting. Um, I already like mentioned this a bit before about the thing with ophthalmology, uh, psychiatry, and other fields being a bit more relaxed. I would say, as a medical student starting out, figure out as soon as possible what it is you actually want to do, what kind of specialty you want to do. Um, and if there aren't people that you can ask this to, you can look it up. There's the internet. There's actually a channel that does this on YouTube. It's called Med School Insiders. And the reason why I'm hammering in on this so hard is because if you know what it is you want to do early on, that then it's just gonna boost your motivation to study. Um, if you know you from the get-go, you want to be a surgeon, you absolutely want to be a surgeon, just watch like a video about a day in the life of a surgeon. Um, See if that's something that works for you. Um, and if it is, then it will motivate you. At least that's what my experience has been. um, so yeah, figure out what it is you want to do, set goals, and that is going to help you to study well and stay competitive, so that eventually when the time comes, you do get to have a shot in the competitive scene that is medicine. Because if you make the decision to suddenly be motivated and to suddenly want to study too late, well, then it's going to be too late. Your grades are already set. Your the opinions that professors have of you is already set. Your opportunities to contact professors and to help them in research is almost gone, if you have to make this decision on the last second. So I would say, yeah, just figure that out. And like I said before, spend the first 1 to 2 years just getting a stable schedule. Don't spend those first two more lax years just you know just living an easier life. I would say spend the free time you have to do an effort to, just get a balanced life in order.
Ah, well, yeah, there's, I think, not no extra questions. I only want to add that medicine, I know from my brother's life how he works now. He's anesthesiologist,
Yeah,
and yeah, medicine. It's not profession. It's a way of life actually. So if you
yeah,
choose to go for it, then everything should be in function of that. So
yeah.
yeah, very good.
If you want, I could spend more time talking about the different disciplines from based on what I know. I could always do that to just kind of give people a sort of image on what it's how the choice is going to be made on what they will
Yeah, yeah,
actually
you
do.
can do it. Yes, it would be nice to explain
Yeah.
like
Okay.
need surgery or psychiatry or
Yeah.
something
Yeah. Sure.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so when it comes to different specialties, I'm not going to sum them all up. I couldn't just name them from the top of my head. It's easy to look up. The thing is, every every specialty has like um, a sort of lifestyle, and some specialties are similar in this aspect. Um, for example, um, you have to look at a couple factors. For example, what is the rate of urgency in the field? So if the rate of urgency is high, like let's say internal medicine, critical care, um, surgery, then you're gonna have to carry around a pager with you, and that means you're gonna have, if you're somebody that likes a stable life, if you're somebody that likes habits, schedules, etc., then it's probably not gonna work for you. Although you can adapt, of course. People are good at adapting, but I'm just throwing that out as a forewarning. Um, if if let's say you want to be the type of doctor that actually helps his gets a lot of fulfillment from helping their patients and can't handle when the patients are not helped, you have to look at something like patient outcomes per discipline. So what that means is, if you're going to go for something like neurosurgery, where the patient outcomes are uh, relatively poor compared to other fields of surgery, and you don't like uh, seeing a patient die at your own hands, at your own inability to fix them, um, then that field is also not going to work for you. Um, and mind you, before I go on, everything I say, most of this is just like in theory something I'm explaining to you, but uh, most people will only figure out what works for them when they actually get to have some experience in the field itself, some internal, I mean, some, yeah, firsthand experience. Um, so but these are some of the factors that I'm listing for you. So patient, so one is work life balance, patient outcomes. uh, some fields have very poor patient outcomes, like psychiatry, and it can be really discouraging for people to have to do this for their entire life. You're going to be seeing patients with, in psychiatry, for example, with addiction, with depression, and you're not going to be able to fix around half of those depressions. Those people are just going to keep coming back, and when you ask them how it's been, you're going to hear the dreaded words that it's just getting worse, or it's not the same, or is it the same. And that can be discouraging for for some people. um, on the other hand, you have very good patient outcomes in some other fields, like let's say d- uh, I would say dermatology, ophthalmology have good patient outcomes, um, and a couple others. I can't name them off the top of my head. Um, and then another factor you have to look at is the hold on, I was right, had it right now. I just forgot it. Hold on. Um, yeah, I forgot it. Sorry. Yeah, that's about it for what uh, when it comes to the uh, picking different specialties, I guess. So yeah, I mean, all of this, everything I'm saying right now, you can find it online. The like I mentioned earlier, the website, what I'm saying, not the website, the YouTube channel, Med School Insiders, has a lot of information on this. They have a lot of information regarding what type of professions have, what type of specialties have the most burnout rates, what type of specialties have uh, the highest compensations, which ones are most competitive, um, which type of doctors are the most happiest in life. All of this is really useful information that you can look up on Med School Insiders. I would recommend that channel a lot to people aspiring to study medicine. Yeah.
It's interesting, and you should know it very quick because there's so many directions to go in medicine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay. Uh, yeah, thank you very much for your explanation. You're probably tired after a long day of internship, so we
No
will not
problem.
make it too long. There is on the Dalit to boil. We will follow up your progress, and inshallah we will see you in a program like Top Doctor or something like that in
Inshallah.
Belgium. So
Yeah.
yes, thank you again for joining.
Thank you for inviting me.
Do it well.
Welcome. All right.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. We will record this and put it on YouTube for a while. As I told, for 1 month. So people who are still making their choices for this year, maybe next year, can watch this. Thank you again. Bye bye. Assalamu alaikum.